Chief Matapang was right. Revisiting a centuries-old tale of indigenous rights, colonialism, and the importance of consent. In the Mariana Islands, we learn of the story of a Chamorro chief of the village of Tumon, Guam, Magalahi Mata'pang, and Padre, or Padre, Diego Luis de San Vitores. We've been taught in Chamorro history that the Spanish priest, San Vitores, was a martyr for religious persecution, while the chief's name has become synonymous with being arrogant, stuck up, or difficult for no reason. In short, to call someone Matapang in modern spoken Chamorro is considered an insult. Chief Matapang's name literally means to be made pure by cleansing in Chamorro. However, I'd argue that Chief Matapang had more than a few valid points in being angry with San Vitores and his Filipino sidekick, Pedro Calungsod. It's time to have an honest discussion about how both European and Asian settler colonialism continue to interfere with or mute Indigenous Pasifika voices. The backstory. In 1672, when Chief Matapang specifically instructed Padre San Vitores not to baptize his daughter, San Vitores ignored the chief's wishes. Chief Matapang had initially converted to Christianity as a mere gesture of gratitude. Padre San Vitores assisted the chief in a time of illness and as a favor allowed the priest to baptize him. However, Chief Matapang later renounced it as a means to control and manipulate Chamorros for Spanish interests. The Spanish later saw Chief Matapang's daughter as a strategic opportunity for a public baptism, an effort to further convert native Chamorros. While Chief Matapang expressed his appreciation for San Vitores and his prior aid in ill health, he sternly refused the baptism. He didn't want it for his daughter, and while the reasons are not clearly stated, the Spanish, let's face it, were the victors in decimating the Chamorro population and destroying parts of our identity we're still struggling to recover today. But the message today is quite clear. Chief Matapang's consent was clearly violated by the Catholic Church, Spanish colonizers, and their Filipino accomplices. On April 2, 1672, the Catholic priest and his Filipino servant, Pedro Calungsod, forcefully entered Chief Matapang's home without his consent and took his daughter to the beach in present-day Tumhom and performed the baptism against the will of the family. As soon as Chief Matapang learned of the gross violation made upon his family on his own land by Spanish and Filipino outsiders and that a religious conversion was being performed without his consent, he was understandably enraged. At the time, it was thought that Spanish priests were spitting in the baptismal water and intentionally infecting native Chamorros with diseases brought in from Europe, which was one of the few motivating factors for Chief Matapang to reject the baptism. However, forcefully entering the chief's home was a demonstrable insult to Chamorro traditions and beliefs that San Vitores had notoriously disregarded. This wasn't the first time San Vitores had done this and had been documented baptizing Chamorro children without parental consent. If you're familiar with centuries of learning about Catholic Church human trafficking and sexual abuse of children, this isn't exactly a surprise. After continuous disrespect and now a home invasion and abduction, Chief Matapang then brought a close associate named Hirao to the beach with him where they executed both Padre San Vitores and Pedro Calungsod. A tragic legacy. Around 500 years ago, when the Spanish first arrived in the Mariana Islands in 1521 with Magellan and his crew, Chamorro language, culture, customs, and everything that make us a unique seafaring culture had been gradually wiped out of history. Mass rapes, torture, genocide, and widespread diseases and destruction were many of the horrors the Spanish brought for nearly 4 centuries, in addition to pressured religious conversion to Roman Catholicism upon the animist Chamorros. Today, Roman Catholicism dominates the religious preference in the Mariana Islands, and the Spanish language is so infused into the Chamorro language along with other foreign words that it's become accepted and a standard for indigenous mother tongue. But how often do we ask for Spanish or even Vatican accountability and compensation for centuries of damage? Seldom, if ever. We look to the US for demilitarization and decolonization, but has Spain or the Philippines ever offered an apology for committing institutional and direct genocide against the Marianas? Japan during World War II? Nope, not at all. To add more salt to the colonial wound, San Vitores was beatified by Pope John Paul II in 1985, and Pope Benedict XVI canonized Pedro Calungsod in 2012 as an official Catholic saint. Religious hypocrisy. Vatican-related sexual abuse cases, polygamy cults, churches picketing military funerals, and evangelical white supremacists storming the Capitol, some Samoros and residents of the Marianas may feel like these problems are worlds away. Yet, we are facing another version of terror since the 16th century. Only it was the Spanish conquistadors and their Inquisition mindset, the Japanese in World War II, and a current anemic and apathetic American occupation that enlists young men and women in the Marianas in droves to fight in U.S. military wars but refuses to give them the right to vote for a U.S. president or even a functional VA hospital that isn't over 3,000 miles away. Patriarchal religions like Catholicism have been used in positive ways in coping with stress, grief, loss, and daily struggles. But let us not look the other way in the damage it's done not only to the Marianas but throughout the world through the doctrine of discovery. It may sound a bit Matapang to throw the book back at religion on our islands and in the Chamorro diaspora, but it's also a bit San Vitores to violate someone's consent, affect legislative action via religious fundamentalism, and violate the civil rights of others by enabling white supremacist terror. When we consider the two historic foes, let us also ask, who was the one being arrogant, stuck up, or difficult for no reason? Was it the chief who requested specific abstinence from foreign religious pressure on his children? Or the Spanish priest who openly flouted the chief's request and kidnapped his daughter anyway? Think about it.